Good morning. Good morning. In case you're not sure what the date is today, it's 11123, which is, I guess, like a conductor thinking twice when counting off a waltz. 1, 1, 2, 3. This is not a waltz. This is a U2 song called New Year's Day, or should we say, New Year's Day.
All is quiet on New Year's Day. A world in wine gets underway. I want to be with you night and day. Nothing changes on New Year's Day. On New Year's Day, I will be with you again. I will be with you again. Under blood red sky, a crowd is gathered, black and white, arms entwined, a chosen few. Newspaper says it's true as true. We can break through, all torn in two. We can be one. I will begin again. I will begin again. Yeah, maybe the time is right. Oh, maybe tonight I will begin again. I will begin again. On New Year's Day,
Thank you for playing that. It's one of my favorites. Thank you. Good morning. Welcome newcomers, members, and friends to our worship service at Central Unitarian Church. Oops.
My name is Susan Gempler, and I'm your worship associate for today, and I'm also a choir member. Today is one of my favorite days, deep in the heart of winter and a day of reflection and regeneration for the new year. I know it's a false beginning, a made-up date, but it is based on the ever-evolving seasons. And I believe, at least for me anyway, that rituals are necessary to mark and celebrate our passage through life, a way to remember and honor past events, and to recalibrate if necessary, and dedicate ourselves to the future. So though it's been fun in the past to party with friends when I was young, as I age, I find it equally wonderful to just be and quietly appreciate the beauty of our world and our existence. Just kind of be high on life, I guess you could say. So I light my candles, or the fire pit outside, and I sit outside in the cold and snow. Last night was misty, with a glass of champagne, and I toast everyone in the world, and I wish the world the best for the new year. Happy New Year. My husband and I have been attending CUC since 2014, precisely because it is an inclusive community which embraces diversity in identity and expression and spiritual belief. Many of our friends and members find inspiration and hope and renewal with us, and we hope that you find something meaningful about the service today. If you are visiting in person, please be sure to say hello to one of our welcome guests. I believe it's Elizabeth Stewart, Edie Ware, and Sally Keene. And actually, we're having a very intimate service today, aren't we? So if you are visiting online, we invite you to sign our guest book, and by providing us your name and a contact information. The link for the guest book has been provided in the chat at the bottom of your screen. We gather as a community of all ages. We believe our children and our youth are an integral part of our community and the future of our faith tradition. We welcome all with open hearts and recognize that bodies, minds, and spirits require ways of paying attention that differ from person to person, and we strive to support each other in creating a space that works for all. Silence and stillness are not our goal, but instead we aim to support each other in enjoying our time together as a community. We are grateful for all those helping to make the service happen, including John Freund, Phil Sosinsky, and of course, Reverend Andrée Cornelia. We invite you to stay after service for conversation and connection in this same space. I believe we do not have coffee this morning. So in preparation for our service, we ask those in person to please silence any electronic devices. And for those of you online, we encourage you to have your own chalice ready and to light it as we light the communal chalice here at CUC. I don't have any announcements, so let's begin. Let's formally begin our gathering. Please turn to the person next to you and offer them a warm welcome.
I also want to mention we're joined by a hearty crew of participants online this morning, so we are a decent crowd here on this New Year's Day. So here we are, another turning, a full year behind us and a new one just begun. This cycle of continuous change carries us forward without choice. This cycle provides a kind of rhythm for living. And with this change, which we cannot stop, we learn and we grow. We say goodbye to what has passed, and we prepare to greet what has yet to come, all passing and being born. With this change, we must decide what to hold on to and what to let go. Here we are, another turning. A full year ahead of us, a full year behind us, a new one just begun. And in this moment of pause in between, today, we set aside time to reflect on what we've learned and what we have yet to learn. Time for us to consider what to hold on to and what to let go. I invite you to join me in the chalice lighting, which is on the screen or in your order of service. We light this chalice to remind us of our dreams, to nourish our heart, mind, and spirit, to work towards a better world for all, to embrace the whole of our human experience, to honor our past and our gifts of the present, to create a community where each of us may find healing, transformation, and hope. And please rise in body or spirit for our opening hymn, number 55, Dark of Winter.
Oh, we do have it up there. Dark of winter, soft and still, your quiet calm surrounds me. Let my thoughts go where they will, ease my mind profoundly, and then my soul will sing a song, a blessed song of love eternal, gentle darkness, soft and still. Bring your quiet to me. Darkness, soothe my weary eyes, that I may see more clearly. When my heart with sorrow cries, comfort and caress me. And then my soul may hear a voice, a still, small voice of love eternal. Darkness, when my fears arise, let your peace flow through me.
which we'll be using a little later in the service. Adding some floating candles. To symbolize us floating in this little moment of serenity. As Susan said in her opening, here on New Year's Day, it's a time of ritual for many people, and the common ritual within our culture is setting New Year's resolutions, committing to something new in the year ahead, usually some type of change, something you want to do better in the new year. And today we're going to take a slightly different approach on this idea. I want to thank John Freund for coming to me a few weeks ago and saying, do you want to partner together on a service? And so we came up with this service today, not just with the music, but John's going to share some reflections along with me. And our approach is we're using the Serenity Prayer as our guide. As a reminder, this prayer goes like this. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. This prayer has been around for quite a while, since the 1930s or 40s, as we can tell, and it's often attributed to Reinhold Niebuhr, who was a popular theologian at the time. And in the 40s, it also very popularly became adopted by Alcoholics Anonymous and has since become a very common prayer used in any 12-step group. And one of the reasons why I think this prayer lives on, especially in something like 12-step, is because there is great power in this very simple prayer. It does a couple things. First, it acknowledges that change is possible, but also that change comes with a letting go. And perhaps most importantly, it's not always clear which one of these things we need to do. When do we need to have the courage for change, and when do we need to find a way to let go? What do we clasp onto? What do we let go? What do we shape into something new? As Unitarian Universalists, I also need to point out that, of course, this prayer begins with the word God, and many of us have different relationships with this word and what it means. And I also find that even outside of Unitarian Universalism, and people that I know that are in 12-step programs, they can often stumble across this as well. What do we mean by God? What do we mean by a higher power? One approach to looking at this prayer is to say that there is a higher power, and it's granting you these things. It's granting you serenity. It's granting you courage. It's granting you wisdom. And another is to consider this prayer a piece of wisdom in and of itself. This prayer is a statement of intention and a reminder of what is an important insight. And so today we're going to focus more on the latter, the assumption that no matter what your views or concepts of God or no concept of God, we can be guided by the wisdom in this prayer. And perhaps that wisdom, which already exists in each of us, is in its own way a form of a higher power. And we're going to use this prayer to guide us to ultimately help us answer the question, what do you need to let go of in 2023? So those of you that are here, as you arrived, you should have received a pen and a couple little paper hearts. Is there anybody who's missing that? Great. And for those of you online, I encourage you to have a pen and a piece of paper nearby. I invite you throughout this service, as ideas come to you in answering that question, what do I need to let go of in 2023, to write it down on one of those hearts. There'll be multiple opportunities throughout the service to write that down, and we'll have a ritual where we physically let those things go. So as an idea pops into your head, no matter where we are in the service, feel free to write it down. And I also want to mention that as we gather this morning, I want to honor those who are in 12-step programs, because in centering the Serenity Prayer today, we are also centering all of those individuals. And we have individuals in this congregation, and we have individuals who are beloveds of us, who are in various types of 12 steps for alcohol, narcotics, marijuana, and more. So for all of those individuals, this service today is a recognition of the deep inner journey that you all are taking. And may we learn from your model of self-reflection and self-transformation. So let us begin this journey. Susan is going to lead us in saying the Serenity Prayer together.
Ready? God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. We are able to fulfill our mission here at Central Unitarian Church through the generous contributions of our members and friends. Your financial gifts help us to maintain our operating budget, which includes paying our staff and programming. And if you are capable of making a contribution today, your gift will help ensure that CUC continues to be a vital part of our lives and our community. Our offering will now be gratefully received.
It's a pleasure to be going around again with you all.
Long, long way to get here, but you're gonna go around again. Take another time to get a picture in your mind. You're gonna go around again. Hey, any day now, we're gonna take a little sit down. If we're gonna have a jubilee or let down, don't let me down. Been a long, hard day. Now you're gonna take assessment. Another day gonna come your way. You gotta be on your best man. Now we turn the year, dark get a little lighter. And we wonder if the future is gonna get a little brighter. Hey, darker day, either way, you know you could be leaving town again. But that's okay, 'cause you're gonna go around again.
We dedicate these gifts in service of our mission to welcome all into a home of spiritual diversity that challenges us to become our best selves, to minister to one another in love, and to serve the greater community.
Now we enter into a time of meditation, taking a moment to share the joys and sorrows of this community. This is something that we do every week as a way of caring for each other. So those of you that are here in person may have lit a candle and submitted some joys and sorrows, which I will read out loud. For those of you online, I encourage you, if you have a joy or sorrow to share, to type that in the chat, and I will also share that out loud. And once we have shared those, I'll then turn back to this room and online and invite you to say out loud the name of anybody else you're holding in your heart today. Coming out of this, we'll do things a little different than we normally do each week. I'm going to offer a prayer and then lead into a moment of silence. And after that moment of silence, we're going to get into some extended meditation time where John is going to be offering us some music. So during this extended meditation time, as we hold all these people and events from our lives which we've shared together, we will also consider the turning of the year. And you may think of something that you need to let go of this year. So let us begin. Let's begin by quieting ourselves and finding a point of stillness together. Finding a space of peace and calm. As we share together the joys and sorrows for this community, for Sunday, January 1st, 2023. Spirit of change and transformation, force of life, moving within the ebb and flow of this universe. May we rest into you at this time of turning, at the cusp of a new year. May we swim along with you within the currents of time without getting carried away. May we know when we need to swim and when we just need to float along. May we know when we need to move at our own rhythm and when we need to move at the rhythm of those swimming beside us. During this time of reflection, may we commit ourselves anew to our life's work of becoming our best selves. During this time of reflection, may we hold together all that is in our hearts, both spoken and unspoken, as we enter into a moment of silence. Spirit of life, may we let go of those things which need letting go. May we reshape the things which need changing. And may we rest in the wisdom that allows us to know one from the other. Blessed be. Amen.
There's a lot in this prayer. Control, boundaries, anxiety, making sound judgments when we're in a place where our vulnerability feels like weakness. And if we focus on that feeling of weakness, our anxiety can spiral up and exhausting our energy and spiraling us down into an abyss of depression, like we are drowning. Yet the water is not the abyss. It's our support, our medium. It's holding us above the abyss. In your very first swimming lesson, they teach you to float, to relax your body, and let the water within you work with the water around you, and you stay on top. So it's not the water that drowns us. It's our difficulty accepting our reality as it is and forgetting that we're part of that interconnected web. And when we get out of balance and no longer feel like we're floating, we get anxious and we start flailing and upsetting the balance further and getting more anxious and flailing more. A drowning person is a panicked person, irrational, suddenly feeling disengaged and losing faith in their relationship with the water. And then we blame it on the water. And the water is like, wait, what, me? What did I do? I've just been doing the same thing I've always been doing. We are fighting, of all things, the water that has made us. 30 years ago, I reached a point where I was haunted by a past I couldn't change and terrified of a future I couldn't ensure. Where did that leave me? Flailing in nowhere. What to accept, what to let go, what to change. I wanted my therapist to play God, to tell me exactly what I needed to do. It doesn't work that way. Fortunately, he said very little, letting me realize that I had to figure it out myself and to actively trust in the help available if I wanted to float again. If there is something in this prayer to take issue with, it's not the idea of reaching for God. We must get outside of ourselves when necessary, maybe ask for help, have a sense of gratitude, or just look at where we are, to reach for a certain omniscience that's hard to get when pushing the day-to-day. It is often said that one should not play God. Well, as the saying goes, walk a mile in their moccasins, ... So let's see what this prayer might look like to God, a very human-like God. So let's begin. God, grant me... All right, I'm going to stop you right there. This is God talking now. So you're coming to me for help, right? I'm here for you. But you are really not in a position to be making demands. A little humility and contrition might help your case a bit, but no offense taken. You're in a bit of a bind, your anxiety is a bit high, you're flailing a bit, you're not really yourself at the moment. I get it. Moving on. Grant me the serenity. Okay, you realize that I created the world and everything in it, right? And that includes you. So if you see someone who has what you consider to be serenity, then you can safely assume two things. Serenity already exists in the world, and it's not restricted to some elite class. And two, you might seek some help locally. Ask that person how they came to it. Just be prepared to listen, because if you have no clue how to get it, hearing how they achieve serenity might help you get it on your own, which would give you a sense of achievement and self-confidence, thereby lowering your anxiety. Just saying. Okay, next. The serenity to accept the things I cannot change. Yeah. You know, sometimes I think I went a little overboard, giving you humans the talent to modify your environment. It's made you a bit self-important, definitely gratitude challenged, and stubbornly thin-skinned when things don't go your way. Do you know that not a single dung beetle has ever prayed for me to give them anything? Courage to change the things I can. Okay, see, this is what I'm saying. I made the cosmos to be cyclical, so things would develop and grow and evolve and learn. So let's review. As the Earth rotates on its axis, you develop daily habits and routines. As the Earth revolves around the sun, you learn to wear flip-flops in the summer and boots in the winter. And you never felt the need to pray to me about that. And why? Because you engaged. And you tried things and you learned. You broke a few eggs and you made some omelets. And I hope you ate your mistakes and didn't give them to the dog. You remind me of this guy, Dave. Dave wanted to go to a convention where a CEO he admired was speaking. And week after week, Dave prays to me, "Oh God, please, please let me go to the convention." Now, I rarely contact petitioners directly, but I went to him in a dream, and I said, "Dave, buy a ticket." And he did. And then he goes to the meet and greet, and he has the audacity to ask the CEO, whose books he could have read, whose TED Talks he could have watched on YouTube, "What is the secret of your success?" And she looks at him with her eyebrow raised, and she says, "I made good decisions." And she turns, but Dave comes back, and Dave says, but how do you make good decisions? And she rolls her eyes a little and says, "I got experience." And he just comes right back, but how did you get experience? And she puts down her glasses, and she rubs her face, and she looks right at him, and she says, "I made bad decisions." You have outlined exactly what you have to do right there in the prayer. It's just, instead of a request to have it handed to you, you have to turn it into a cycle of things to do, a ritual. You don't need courage, you just need patience. Give it time. Try changing something, or at least influencing something. Keep at it until it becomes a good decision or a bad decision, and then let the bad ones go. For most things, you don't need me or Jesus to intervene. You know, I was talking to Jesus the other day, and he told me that he didn't always carry you across the sand. And he didn't abandon you either. I was a little offended by that, he wasn't. But he knew, as do I, that you had available everything you needed. You just needed to handle the challenge on your own that time. Your anxiety about the past and the future does not leave you nowhere. It puts you now here, the only place where your actions mean anything. Yeah, you feel vulnerable. Congratulations. That's the first unchangeable thing you have to accept. You are always vulnerable, whether you feel it or not. Knowing vulnerability and being comfortable with it is the ultimate strength. The whole reason you exist is because I put water on this planet.
So, literally or metaphorically, dive into deep water and don't fight. Loosen your muscles. Sigh. Lean back, and you will find that you are floating. And there is your serenity.
Please rise in body or spirit for our next hymn, which is number 352 in the Great Hymnal, or also up here on the screen, Find a Stillness.
Stillness, oh, the stillness, let the stillness carry me. Find the silence, oh, the silence, let the silence carry me.
I want to take a few moments to share a reflection to build off of what John said. And I want to focus on the last phrase of the prayer that brings it all together. Grant me the wisdom to know the difference between knowing what we need to let go of and knowing what needs changing. If we don't believe in a higher power separate from us who can grant us this wisdom, where does it come from? The answer is ourselves. That wisdom is inside ourselves. One way we can think of that is that there's two parts of us. There's an inner self and there is an outer self. That outer self is shaped by the world, our environment, our relationships, our culture, our situations that we encounter in life. And that outer self is often pretty malleable, can change a lot. And sometimes part of that outer self is wearing a mask to protect ourselves from the world, sometimes multiple masks. And this is often the part of ourselves that we are sharing with others. And sometimes we get to the point where we mistake that outer self for our true selves. Our true inner self is in our genes. It's the core essence of who we are. And it's not as malleable as our outer self. It's more of a constant, a rock. And we can do work to align it with our outer self. But we often tend to keep it separate and keep it hidden. So let me give an example of how these can play together in our lives. When I was in my 20s and my early 30s, I lived in New York City, specifically in Greenwich Village, and I identified with somebody who lived in the village. I never wanted to go anywhere else, and I was pretty vocal about this. People would ask me if I wanted to go somewhere, and I would go, "Is it above 14th Street?" And they thought I was kidding. Friends and coworkers associated me not only with the city, but with living in the village. This bohemian community this is where my people were. And to give another example, my spouse at the time, as we were starting to think about having a family, had said, should we consider moving to the suburbs? Raising a kid in the city can be pretty hard. And my answer was, this was honestly my answer, sure, you and the kids can go live in the suburbs and you can come visit me in the city on weekends and holidays. I held really close to my identity as a New Yorker and specifically as a resident of the bohemian Greenwich Village. But if I was really honest with myself, as much as I loved it there, I was also deeply unhappy. Because I loved the energy, the vibrancy, the immediacy of living in the city, but there was a level of stress and anxiety that was wearing me down. And once I became a parent, the city just added another level of stress. And I wasn't happy in my vocation. I yearned for community and connection that I didn't have, that was deeper than what I was experiencing in the city. And I didn't know it at the time, but those were kind of the seeds of my family's move to Vermont, where those seeds would really take root. And I would discover more about myself because I would have not only the wide open spaces, but the inner space to do the work I needed to discover myself, discover my call to ministry. And that seed would not have taken root without a significant letting go. See, I was all, just involved in this identity of being a New Yorker. And then we went to go visit some close friends who'd recently moved from Brooklyn to California. They were living in the Bay Area, and like us, they had a 1-year-old. They'd been a significant part of our friend group in New York City, yet when we were there visiting them, I noticed something that surprised me. Even though they weren't living in New York, they were happy and content. This was a revelation to my 20-year-old self. And I began to wonder, well, maybe I am more than New York City. Maybe I've mistaken this outer part of myself with my inner self. And I had to let go of that in order to find an opportunity for change. And if I hadn't, I know I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be your minister. I might not be in ministry. That letting go was really important change for me. I just said I was 20, but I was actually in my 30s, my early 30s at that point. So there's this, outer malleable self, and then there's this inner, more immutable self. And there are other situations that are more difficult than this. There are situations we face that cannot be changed, and parts of us that cannot be changed that are part of who we are. And sometimes we don't like them, or we're taught not to like them. But we have to learn to accept them. I can't change the fact that I'm queer or trans or a highly emotional person, but all of these things at one point in my life I denied and tried to change, or at least pretend like they were not there. And this only led to pain and unhappiness for myself and those around me. And now in my life, as I'm living openly as a queer and trans person, I've let go of many of these masks of my outer self. And I live life more fully because part of my inner self is able to shine through. And beloveds of mine have had similar struggles with understanding themselves as autistic, as an addict, as having mental illness, as being chronically ill, as being disabled. And I'm not saying that these are all parts of an inner self, and I'm not saying any of these are bad or good, but it's all of our work to figure out what parts of these are part of our identity, part of our inner self, and how we're living our life with them, and deciding what role they play in our lives. This is where we all have the power to control something. We may not be able to control who we are or certain types of our situations, but we can handle the parts of ourselves that are challenging, and we can figure out how to deal with them, even if they're parts of ourselves that we don't like. And I think this is most clear when you're looking at others as opposed to yourself. It's somehow easier to see it in others than it is to see it in yourself. And as anybody who's a parent has seen this, right? My eldest has inherited something from me. She's a highly emotional person. And I know from personal experience, and she's got another parent who's highly emotional, that living life with this heightened sense of emotions can be difficult. You reach a certain point in your life, a certain age, where people are really uncomfortable with messy emotions because you're no longer a kid. Crying, for example, is often considered unacceptable behavior, and adults will try to make you stop. Sometimes your parents, sometimes teacher, sometimes just trying to completely ignore you or trying to shame you even for what you're feeling. And I know that my job as a parent is not to deny my child those emotions, not to change who she is or how she feels so deeply. My job is instead to help her understand the beauty of that aspect of herself, while learning skills to constructively handle her emotions. My job is to encourage my child to understand and appreciate the essence of who they are, and to encourage them to share that with the world as if it's been given to them as a gift. My daughter will make her own decisions about how she relates to her emotionality. I personally have decided long ago to embrace my emotions. I don't apologize for crying. I don't apologize for what I feel. The vulnerability and openness that comes with my emotions are a core part of who I am and how I carry myself in the world. What I can work on is how I use those emotions, how I react to those emotions. And I keep working on that inner and outer aspect of myself and how that aligns to that piece specifically. But I think my emotionality there's a deep power in living into that, especially in my ministry. So this work of what's inner work and what's outer work and what's changeable and what we need to let go of, this is ongoing work. It's never stopping. More recently in my life, I've had to examine my own relationship with alcohol. I don't consider myself an alcoholic or in recovery, but especially in the lockdown, when we were all by ourselves and alone, and I was living alone at the time and in a profession with high stress and anxiety, I had to look at all I was drinking, and I had to really think about the destructive power that alcohol had over my life, that closed me off from the world and people close to me. In the past, this last holiday week would have been one just filled with drinking, combined with navigating the complexity of family expectations. And having drinking as a solo coping mechanism is not a good combination. So this is just my journey. And again, I know there are people here and people in our congregation who have different relationships with sobriety and alcohol and other substances. And we all have to go through that inner journey. And it can happen throughout our lives. For me, living sober brings me more presence to myself and to others, and it allows, again, my inner self to be more present. And this work is always happening. So this is This is a powerful way for us to consider the wisdom in the Serenity Prayer. It's not just for people in 12-step, if you're not in 12-step programs, if you're not in recovery. It's something for us all. And there's the wisdom is the linchpin that holds it together, because the wisdom resides in each of us. And it takes lifelong work for us to understand both our inner and outer selves and decide what we want to shed, what we want to boldly share with the world as a gift, as a core part of who we are. This is indeed powerful and hard work. May we all be so blessed to experience life transformed by such wisdom. And so now, with these reflections, I'm inviting you to continue your own reflection. What is it that you need to let go of in 2023? Perhaps you heard something during the service. Perhaps you've already written down an answer or multiple answers to this question. Perhaps you maybe need a little more time to collect your ideas and write them down on our little hearts that you have. When you're ready, I invite you to come forward. John's going to play some music, and I invite you to let go of what you've written down in our little serenity pool here. It's self-dissolving paper, so when you let it go, you can either watch it dissolve, there's a spoon there if you want to kind of stir it a teeny bit, or you can just let it go and walk away. This is a ritualized act of letting go for us all. I invite those of you that are online to write these down. You can tear up your paper if you want to. The other thing you can do is you can direct message me in chat. If you have a word or two you want me to write down and put in the pool for you, I will do that. So you have a couple options there. So let's begin. What do you need to let go as we enter 2023? May it be so. May we feel the transformative power of our collective release at the turning of this year. I invite you to rise and body our spirit for our closing hymn, For the Earth Forever Turning. Please join me in our words for extinguishing our chalice. We extinguish this chalice flame, but not our promise to each other, to act with grace, to hold each other in love, to serve this community and our world. This promise of the heart serves as a reminder of how we live together. May it bring joy to our collective lives. May it be so. May serenity, courage, and wisdom, may the serenity, courage, and wisdom we need be with us, transforming our lives and the world. Blessed be. Thank you again, John, for the lovely music and your partnership on our service today. Thank you to Susan Gempler for being our worship associate. Thank you to Phil, and we didn't mention earlier, but Jim Karabin is back on tech as well. And gratitude for all of you being here, both in person and online. Happy New Year.